So I think what I always like, we were here, a couple weeks ago when we had our database class. It ended up being me, you, and Tracy just having a nice 45-minute conversation about databases at work. I hope today would be somewhat similar, but around conversations. And so, I think it might just be a healthy thing to, one, I just use these to jog your memory. I don't know if there's any that you have currently situations that you're working on. You have a conversation that you're about to engage with a client that you've been maybe just not dreading, but, trying to put a little extra stock into your preparation.
Mm-hmm.
Or if there was a conversation you had recently that didn't go the way you wanted to. Now, I am by no means an expert in all things real estate, all things communication, but I have spent a lot of time on the psychology of communication.
You're as close to an expert as we have.
In my opinion, yes, as much as we have here in our 150 person market center. But no, I think, look, I learn different ways of saying things from new agents. I think new agents learn how to say things from experienced agents. I think we all learn from each other all the time. But I think one of the things that I've adopted more so in my conversations is much more of a framework rather than scripts. Models over, like memorized sentences. I was trying to do that so early on in my career, memorize the sentences in the KW handbooks, and I'm like, there is not a scenario in the world where I would say this sentence I just wouldn't say it. So I got more into models. What is the pathway of questions that I want to try and get to? What are some of my stock questions that I like to have at the ready? What are some of the sentence openings that I like to use a little bit more? So that's kind of more my frame on scripts anymore. But we'll start with your personal business, and if we want to use these as a backup. Is there a situation that you had recently or that you're about to encounter that's going to be a scripting or objection handling situation? I have one from today. So I was referred a rental car. Yeah, I thought it was fireplace. So I was like, all right, we'll see how we do. And anyway, it was referred to me by an agent who's not licensed in New Jersey. And they said, hey, they want rentals, 1,600 to 1,800, 2 bedrooms, Gloucester County. Like, okay, no problem. I can, I'll chat with her and I can either help her or let somebody on my team. And so we get chatting, and then she says, hey, I did end up finding something. I apologize for dodging you, but we had, already had an application with somebody before I got in contact with her, and et cetera, et cetera. No problem at all. She said, but we do want to buy a house, and we probably want to buy in 2027. See, it's over a year away from now. I mean, it's 13 months away from now, but it's still over a year from now. I said, well, how long of a lease did you sign? 6 months. Math is really math here. What's going on for the other 6 months? And I asked, what's holding you back right now? She said, well, we effectively have 5 children that'll be living with us. I make good money. My boyfriend makes good money. We'd be probably looking to buy up around 400,000. All right, great. All right, so it's like real buyer. So we're going to have a buyer consultation on Saturday, not this Saturday, but Saturday the 13th at 5:30 p.m. Because apparently that's the first time they were available for a buyer consultation. And so I need to have this conversation with this woman and really try and explain the fact that, unless you only have like $1,000 to your name and you can only save $50 a month, you're probably a lot closer to buying than you think you are. And her complaint is, and she said to me, I've been trying to look for a house to purchase for 2 years. I said, okay, first, have you had an agent sit down with you to explain the process? No. Have you spoken with a lender? I've talked with a few that never really went forward with it. So I'm sitting here thinking and I don't know where the objection handler is, but I'm like, oh, this isn't making sense. You've been looking for 2 years. You've never gotten pre-approved. You've never actually sat down with a realtor to learn what it takes to do this. You've been looking exclusively on Zillow at properties, and you think you're 14 months away from buying a house. So I guess what would you do in that scenario? What are we trying to get to first on the call? Do I just go into here? Let me educate you about the house, or what other questions would you want to ask to maybe find out why this has been so incongruent, been so kind of stop-start with all this? I mean, what else would you want to find out from this one, if you were in?
I would, this would have to be a very delicate topic to get into, but you wonder if maybe because it's a boyfriend, maybe the relationship is not as
Very true.
strong as what
Very
she
true.
is hoping for before they get into this huge purchase together.
Yeah. So maybe the question is sort of, hey, you said you've been looking for a house for 2 years. Have you been dating your boyfriend for that entire period of time?
Yeah.
Or, have you been dating for 5 to 6 years and it's just the last 2 years? Or I've been looking for 2 years and we've really only been dating for about a year. I think I agree with you. I mean, so if it was the latter, it makes sense why you've had kind of this double clutch because somebody's new in your life and with somebody new, and apparently you guys are pretty serious. Okay, now you're trying to recast the vision of what our joint future will start to look like. Okay, so really start to get more of a timeline of this relationship. And have you had any issues personally that have given you doubts?
And I'm dealing with that right now because I had a boyfriend girlfriend type situation. They've been together for several years. They bought everything together. They have 3 kids together. And all of a sudden he came home and said, I got a new girlfriend at work and I need you to move out.
Wow.
And she said,
they have 3 kids together?
Yes. He said, this is my house too. And he said, I don't care. He said, take the kids and get it. And so,
wow.
And of course she got a lawyer, and of course the lawyer's saying, well, a lot of questionable stuff here because you guys never married.
Yeah.
And
you never married. Now is she on the deed?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so she's on the deed. Yeah. So he can't just kick her out, right? No, he can't just kick her out.
She asked me what she should do, and I said, you should have your lawyer. I said, he's either have to buy you out.
Right.
And she said, well, he's not willing to sell the house. And I said, you got to get a judge to order it.
Yeah, but he could do a quick claim deed with assume a mortgage and then just pay her off what she owes. So he doesn't have to sell it. But I don't know if he's going to, depending on their equity position, is he really about to pony up 60, 70 grand per half?
There are a lot of other things that's coming out too. He hasn't paid his income taxes in 8 years. And so I said, there's going to be some liens on the property probably from the IRS. And she didn't even know that he hadn't been paying it and all this. It's been a mess. But anyway, so not taking the story away, but
that's the stuff that's just under the surface of we've been waiting to buy for 2 years.
Right.
And I think, coming back to the class of it all, I find, I sat yesterday in Wynn, and there was a brand new agent, David Sue. He's been a realtor for 2 months, done 2 open houses. That's about it. And he's like, I think I might want to cold call. All right, great. Well, who are you going to cold call? Expireds. Great. Love that. What are you going to talk to me right now? What are you going to say? Hi, this is David. I saw on the website that your home is expired and I want to sell your house. I was like, okay. At face value, I get what you're getting to. I said, but you know what you know absolutely nothing about? Whether they even want to sell her again or not.
Yeah.
Whether they understand, do they even know that they expired? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Do you even know if they want to move forward or don't want to move forward? Do you even know why they think they didn't sell? Do you know if they go back on market, are they willing to address the reason why it didn't sell? Before I'm going to take my time to go sit with somebody at their house and drive 45 minutes there for 45 minutes.
You even know if the house is even listed again.
Yeah. So, so that, I think that's the other part is like, before you get into your prescription mode, I think we all need to do a little bit better job of being a good diagnostician. We need to be house. I'm on season 7. You know house, right? You know what I'm talking about here. But it's so much of that. It's like you don't just start pumping them full medicine the day they get there. Like, no, you sit in a room and you really think about what are all of the mitigating factors that go into this. And let me ask both of you. It's like, you've had clients where they really share a lot with you, and you're able to help them really well, and you have a great experience from it. And then I meet another client. It's really cagey with all of the details that would matter to us doing this. And I had one gentleman, I won't forget, he unfortunately had just been released from prison. He was there for like a white collar crime and he was there for like 10 months. So he was not like this career criminal, and everything. He was part of a program where he was getting government assistance, like a post, I'm working now out of prison within a certain period of time, you get assistance for different things. So, okay, help you get back. And I'm talking about like his pre-approval. I'm just trying to say like, hey, when you have a chance, like if you want to submit an offer, I need to see a copy, just a PDF. Well, I am pre-approved. I said, no, I get that. But do I just tell the listing agent that? I said, no, don't worry about it. He's pre-approved. Like, I just need to see the document. He's like, you'll see it when I'm ready to give it to you. And I'm sitting here like, hey man, this isn't how this works. Like, I'm not trying to tell you that like I know everything and you don't, but I am going with like, I'm not trying to get more information out of you than I need. But I do need that. And he wouldn't give it to me. And he ended up like saying like, hey, you're being very disrespectful, like questioning all these details about me. I'm like, buddy, I'm going to stop you right there. We're not working together. I'm not asking for anything that I wouldn't ask for any other client that I've ever. All right. But you have such a defensive attitude that I don't think this is an objection that I can't overcome. Like at a certain point, if you are going to be that disrespectful and that just cagey, I can't go into a real estate transaction without knowing what I'm getting into, because what if you're committing fraud that I don't know about? What if you have a Word document pre-approval that you're working on? You're going to have funds from an unknown source in your account. You know these things.
Yeah.
So yeah, but have you had that where you've had clients who are a little kind of?
Well, I have that right now. And this is a client that I've been working with, and I've known for probably a year. But he has a business partner that I've known for 20 something years, and business partner is kind of the bigger, the bigger investor. But this guy, so that he's looking for a private, personal residence, and he's looking up to about 2.5 million. So we had a house yesterday that he wanted to see, and I said, well, the only way they're going to show it is if we either have a pre-approval or proof of funds.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't share my proof of funds with anyone. And it's a cash buyer. And I said, well, then we're going to end right now.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to play this game.
Yeah.
I said, you and I both know you have the money to do it.
Yeah.
But for me to be able to do this, I have to be able to show the seller that we're not wasting their time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
they're going to vacate the house for an hour.
Yeah. And he said, well, how about if I just send you, one bank account statement, and it has like 1.5 million in it. And so he sent me that, and I said, I have that now, but I said, the house is 2.5 million.
Yeah, right. I don't know if they're going to take a 60%, 60 cents on the dollar offer.
But what I did with him, and because I know him, and because I do know, again, I just to make sure I did get that one statement from him. And I've done this with a couple other buyers in the past that have always turned out real well. I do call a lender that I know real well.
Yeah.
And I say, would you go ahead and do a pre-approval for this particular buyer for this amount, and do like a 50% down payment. And that way we can have, the
right. I don't have to give the seller their bank account. But I can give the seller enough to say that we're about at least able to purchase this.
So that's what I did. So I called the lender and I said, hey, here's, he said, yeah, I'll write it up right now. Shoot it to you. That's what he did.
Okay.
But yeah, he was, I just don't feel comfortable doing my bank account information.
And I get that.
I said, I wouldn't either. I said, we'll redact the account number and things like that, But
it just needs to have, I think for me, there's 4 things that you need to approve. The name of the institution where the money's held, the name as it will appear on the contract, the amount to show liquid available funds to buy the house, and the date.
Yeah.
To me, that's a proof of funds.
Right.
Like that's all I need.
Right.
How about you? You had a kind of a client in a similar boat as this?
I had a client that I was working with throughout the summer. It was a referral from the client that I was working with lived in Philly. He was looking for a house in Philadelphia for him and his mother, who was selling her house in Florida, and to move up here for. And she was selling her house in Florida. The agent already had like the pre-approval and everything, but I was working with the son who was taking, doing a lot of the footwork of finding the property.
Sure.
So when one of the first conversations we had was he said, I don't understand why I got to give you this money deposit. It's like, because it's just in the game. Well, what's the seller's skin in the game? Taking the property off the market.
Right.
I said, you got to give me something, even if it's like as low as $1,000. Found out later that he didn't really have a job, him himself, but it was the mom that was pre-approved, maybe federal. The agent, I talked to the agent down there. She was helping with selling the property. She said, no, they are very legit. So played that game for a little bit longer.
So was the son going to be buying the property, or was
it was the mom buying?
Mom, but he was just the one.
He was the one. Yeah,
he was the one giving the pushback on the lease and all the terms.
Yes.
Hey.
And then when we found a property that they let that fit everything that what he was looking for, wanted to put an offer. He looked at the contract. He said, why do I have to pay for an inspection? The seller should be the one to pay for the inspection and then give me the inspection report. Why do I have to give him the inspection? Do you want an inspection or not? I do want an inspection. Okay, so you have to pay for the inspection. How much of an earnest deposit do you want to do? None. Like, you have to put a deposit, sir. Give me something, even if it's $500. Like, like, I need something.
Yeah.
Then he's like, after a lot of thought, he said, I'm not working with. He didn't want to, because he didn't like the way how the contract was written. He didn't like the
the standard
agreement in Salem, Pennsylvania.
Now, did y'all do a buyer consultation with the mom and the son?
Well, I talked. That's the thing. I didn't really get a chance to talk to the mom herself because it was a lot of, and he was very protected, and he was, and even with the agent in Florida, she was very. Like she said, it took her a long time to get to the point where he was more trustworthy. So basically, I dropped him as a client because it was like I can't make. And I told the agent, I said, I appreciate the referral, but I can't help your guy.
Yeah, if he's not going to do the thing.
And she said, I don't even know, or like we can't do anything. I said, he can't. And then she told him I actually had a full length conversation with him and said, nobody's going to take you seriously if you don't put.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to take even it's.
So if you had to redo that, if you had to go back and do it over again, let's say you're back and he calls you and says, hey, I want to do this. We have the house in the market, we want to sell it. How would you reapproach that to say, to reset the tone?
How to reset the tone?
Yeah, and that's why I asked the buyer consultation, because I'm like, normally that stuff we covered. What is an escrow deposit? Why is it required? What are the standard amounts we pay? What would you do differently if you had the same client?
What I would do if I had the same type of client back, would be to make sure, and I mean, it's obviously just make sure that we have a full understanding that this is what is expected in the marketplace.
Yeah.
This is just what is expected. You can't just do things on a whim. Or make things up, or just say, you know what, I don't like that. I don't want to do it. It's America. You can do whatever. Sorry, but you can do whatever you want. But contract law, that's not what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But what I would going back to, I would probably definitely reiterate what he has to do.
Yeah.
What is expected in this marketplace to lay back.
Do you have any sort of physical assets that accompany a buyer consultation that you do? Physical assets, a document, a packet, something that you can physically give him.
I give all my buyers it's a form from ABR, 10 things that a buyer agent does for you.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's
But does that explain what escrow deposits are? Does that explain how to make an offer?
It I don't think the form.
Here's what I would say.
No.
So one of the things that I found that I started doing, and I just had a buddy in Philadelphia who was like, I need to do that. He just showed me his first draft. It's rough, but it looks good.
Yeah.
But it goes through we have the 10 steps of buying a house. Meet a real estate agent. Get pre-approved. Search for homes. Make an offer. Under contract. Clear consent. Whatever. And so in my buyer consultation, I'm not going through all of that. I'm not going through every single piece, every single bullet point. I said, but what we are going to do during that buyer consultation is we're going to talk about how to make an offer, and what happens when you're under contract, and why the things that we offer are related to the things that happen under contract. That's the main crux of education for me in the buyer consultation. And I've made a 3-page document for both New Jersey and for Pennsylvania about how to make an offer, a guide created by Coca-Cola. And it goes through 3 sections: required, recommended, and miscellaneous. And so I say the required terms are purchase price, closing date, escrow, buyer financial information for PA, right? Our mortgage or financing terms, right? Like these are required documents. And then I give an explanation of somewhere between 1 to 5% purchase price for escrow is required, Then the recommended is like, okay, as soon as you get into any sort of a multiple bid situation, or if you need to sweep the pot, inspections. What are the different ways I can negotiate a home inspection? Appraisals. What are some of the ways you can do an appraisal gap coverage? Escalation clauses, right? These are the first big things we're going to go to. Then I have all the miscellaneous. We'll pay for both sides of the transfer tax. We'll take care of a UNO. That's me. Here's like, we'll take care of that stuff. I said, but this is your guide. We're going to review not the whole thing, but again, the required and recommended. We're going to go through that together. So I only say that because what it sounds like what you're talking about, like something like that might have been missed for that guy.
Yeah.
Or he didn't think that. I mean, Dylan's doing it where he's going to have the buyer initial every page of that document, and at the end, a signature to state, "I have read this in its entirety, and with each offer and under contract, this will be the guide that we will both use together to make decisions." And it's more like a consumer notice, right? We're not agreeing to work. It's just a disclosure. This, you've been made aware of this, and this is what you're. And that feels like.
It probably, yeah, it does feel like that was probably messed with. And again, even so much just explaining it to them over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And then at that point, it was like, clearly you
got in the water system.
Yeah, it was, and that's where it came down to, because I explained
not a different way I can say this. Right.
You have to, this is what you have to do. Right. And if you have 2 professional, and more than likely your lender, because I did talk to the lender as well to make sure everything was all legit.
Yeah.
If you have 3 people telling you have to put a deposit down, and if you want an inspection, you will be paying for it. You will be. Then clearly, he just didn't want to do it. He didn't want to.
Did you guys have a signed buyer agency agreement?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, you did. So he knew
he knew what he had. Yeah. So, but he just one of those
unrealistic, very unrealistic person.
Yeah, very unrealistic.
Yeah, unrealistic. I think that's a good way of describing it. I've gotten to a point now where, especially with this whole buyer agency thing, right? It's been around for more than a year now, so it's not new, but there are some, and especially the new agents that are like, oh, I don't want to push them too hard to sign that right away until they're ready to make an offer on something. I said, well, first off, it's illegal for you to take them out. So I get that you're a little afraid of being pushy, but what you're really doing is being a salesperson. You're also being a licensed salesperson that is putting horse before the cart or cart before the horse, where it's like, I can't show you this house without this signed document. I know you're a little uncomfortable trying to force somebody to sign a document, but like there are steps of this where things have to be signed before we move forward. I can't show you a house without a signed buyer agency. I can't put an offer in without your pre-approval letter. Like I've gotten very much like, oh, hey, it's no problem if you don't want to do that, but everything stops. Take some time. If you want to take a week, that's fine. This house will probably be gone. But if you need to take a week to kind of mentally do your research around what needs to be done to submit this offer, that's fine. And then once you're ready, move forward. And when I stopped making must-haves a negotiation, I think it actually got easier. No, this is just a matter of fact. It is the step.
I think that's a lot of it right there. So many times, and even back in the buyer's agency, it wasn't mandatory at the very beginning, but yet you still had to have it signed. That's where you put your service fee and all that stuff in there. I just present it as a matter of fact. I don't give them an opportunity really to argue or to dispute it. I mean, even with buyers now, you don't have time to do a buyer consultation. I prefer that, but there are some buyers that you just don't have time to do. But I had one just recently where we talked on the phone. We're going to meet the first house, and I said, by the way, as you know, before we go in, I've got a couple of documents you'll need to sign before I can take you in. And I just don't. I said, and it was in PA. I said, it's just this is my buyer agency agreement. And I said, we've got to sign that before we go in. I just made it a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, and say, well, you know, I hope it's okay, or I hope you don't mind signing this.
Yeah.
We're just gonna do it, period.
Yeah.
This is the way business is done.
Yep.
You know?
I remember there was a classic buyer consultation. I never forget it. It was at Starbucks in Marlton, right on 1773. I sat there with this woman, and I was trying to get her to sign a buyer agency agreement. And we were doing a buyer consultation, and I spent 40 minutes going over the consumer notice, everything that's inside of it, the buyer agency agreement. I spent 40 minutes going over it, and she wouldn't sign. And I think I put her on her heels so much because I was spending so much time and being so serious about every line of these documents that I literally think I spent the show. I really. And now, you know, I don't even really go over the documents yet. I just say, great, when you're ready to go see the first house, I'm going to send you over the 3 documents we need to show homes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. But, you know, as new agents, we feel like we have to over-explain them. As experienced agents, we're just like, no, they're matter of fact. But I don't know, is it just that new agents come into this not having had to sign many documents like that themselves, getting up to a point like this, so they're just not used to the rigmarole of like how legal documents go? Are they unsure about what the documents are, so they almost need to like convince themselves to convince the other person to sign them? Are they just scared of doing something illegal? Like I don't understand.
I think that's a lot. I think they're concerned that if they don't cover all their bases exactly right, they're going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
But even like I said, that buyer agency agreement with the broker service fee back a few years ago, I've always had a broker fee, you know, and as I was going through the buyer agency agreement, I just went through, you know, here's the buyer agency agreement. This is what allows me to represent you. This is also what's going to show that, you know, I have a broker service fee. This is X amount of dollars if we pay a settlement. And I just move right on through.
Yeah.
And never had any questions about it. And I had one agent come to me and said, "Oh man, I never can get that part done." And he said every time I present it, the buyer rejects that part of it. And I said, "Well, let me sit in a buyer consultation with you." And he was going through the buyer agency agreement. He got to that point. He said, "Here's the buyer agency agreement, or here's the broker fee." He said, "You know, I know this is kind of high. I'm sorry I have to charge this for you, but you know, this is something that I need to charge, blah blah blah." You know, and they're like, "No, I'm gonna pay that."
Right.
So later he like, "See what I mean?" I said, "That's because you made a big deal about it.
Yeah.
You stopped on that and pointed it out."
Yeah.
I don't. I just, as I'm going through, I say, you know, and here's where it says you're gonna pay the $6.99 fee, blah blah blah, pay the settlement. Here's where this is. We just move right on through. And I said, don't make a big deal about it. Just matter of factly, you're the professional. And I think that's a lot of it too, is newer agents don't understand the concept of, hey, I'm the professional. I've been through the education. I've taken the tests that were required by the states that I'm licensed in. I've been licensed as a professional by my state.
Yeah.
I'm a
That is good
professional.
enough to be able to do. Yeah.
So
I try and tell the new agents, I said, by getting a real estate license, you realize you are more informed about real estate than almost 90% of the entire country, right? Just by getting your license, you are. So 9 out of 10 people you're going to meet, you're going to know more about real estate than them.
Yeah.
Why are we meeting so few?
Yeah.
Oh, well, they're a doctor. Great. You're not going to perform surgery, so that's okay, right? Like that's okay.
Well, and I find that professionals like that give you less hassle.
They do. I agree. With
because they say, you know, hey,
feel.
I'm busy doing my thing. I hire you to do your thing.
Correct.
You handle it.
I agree with that.
Yeah. And a lot of my clients are professionals like that, and not just you just work with it.
Yeah. So we are kind of going around chatting about some situations that we've had recently or that we have coming up where we're either dreading a conversation or curious how it's going to go, or you just had one recently that didn't go exactly the way you thought. So is there any conversations for you that come to mind, either ones you just had or ones you're about to have coming up, that maybe you could have done differently or at a crossroads of how to handle it in the future?
That's a good question.
Thank you. See you later.
Have a great day.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I try to answer.
I've probably had some in the past, but for me to call them right now, I don't really have anything that's sticking out.
Sure. So I think one of the things I mentioned too is that I try and work on kind of models and frameworks now. And I think the one that hits me a lot is the GROW model. So it's 4 letters. What's the goal? What's the reality? What's the obstacle? What's the way forward? So, and it's kind of the positive present, negative future, positive future matrix. So I think they both kind of work in line. But really, it starts with, all right, so, and I'm thinking of her situation, and I almost wanted to be like, all right, well, let's talk to, hey, what do you like right now about what your housing situation is? Oh, well, I'm pretty flexible. I don't have that tied down anything. Okay, you understand. We're obviously here looking to buy a house, so there must have been a reason why. A lot of times it can also be there's something negative going on that I would avoid. So what's negative right now about your current situation? It's like, well, I can't move forward with getting a job or with getting anything because I don't have this set up right now. And that's the whole point. So you kind of start with the positive present. Then I moved into the negative present, right? It starts on positive, but then I moved into like, what's not working right now? And I think what a lot of humans do, and it's a mental self-protectionism mentality that we adopt to avoid anxiety, is I don't think about my problem 3 years from now. I just think about my problem today, last week, and next week. And there's never enough in that pain to take enough action. So what I force them to do is like, okay, what if it's 3 years from now and you still have never bought a house and all of the problems you're having you'll have had every single day for the next 3 years? Stop. You wait. Make them sit in it, right? And that's the negative future. And they say negative future is where people make decisions. Is that okay, no, you're right. Holy shit. No way do I want to do this for 3 years. Okay? Way forward or positive future is, all right, well, the way that we go about this is we really figure out what is the escrow amount you're going to be comfortable with. Are you, let's get the pre-approval rolling, and then let's see homes that are within your budget. That's how we move this forward. You can buy a house right now. You have we're ready to go. But the negative, you're just not, you're saying like, oh, I'm comfortable right now, and there's a little bit of uncomfortability to buy a house. Well, yeah, if you only this last week, this week, next week, you're always going to be less uncomfortable than the uncomfortability of buying a house. But if I say for the next, 1,000 days of that uncomfortability, well, now that uncomfortability is here, and now this far outweighs the uncomfortability of buying a house. So I always kind of like to say, like, we don't force anybody to buy houses, but we are the professional perspective provider. And I think that, like, objection handling, whatever we want to kind of chalk this up to be, but I think that's really what it just comes down to, is that some people are just so in the weeds in their thoughts. It's like, hey, lift up and kind of see the forest through the trees here a little bit. And then I feel like the right decision just rises to the top. When you give enough perspective to somebody, the right decision.
I wonder too, in her situation, one of the unknowns or unclarified things there was the mother. Because it sounded like she had all of her conversations with the son, but the mother was the one that was
The decision maker.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you wonder, well, is the mother not available to get the information and make the decisions, or is the son trying to sabotage the whole deal because he doesn't want to live with his mom? I mean,
Could be. Yeah. Well,
I've had situations where I've dealt with one person, even though there's a two-party transaction, right? But you dominantly just deal with one person, and the one person that you're dealing with may not be the person that actually is the more of the decision maker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But unfortunately, you're dealing with, that's the person you're introduced to. That's the person who you just tend to stick with, and then tend to work through them to get to the other person.
Yeah. And there can be stickiness there, and I think it takes a lot. It takes a lot of the person you're dealing with, who is the one who's going to be the boots on the ground, who's not the purchaser. There's a big responsibility
Or seller.
that falls to
on the seller side is the same thing.
Sure. I had it where we just closed a month ago. It was a son and daughter, or excuse me, a son and his husband, their little 1-year-old, who were moving from Philadelphia to the suburbs. Fine, whatever. But their parents, the husband's parents down in North Carolina, were going to be buying the property cash in their irrevocable trust. Okay. So they are never going to come up and see any of these properties. but they are the ones that are going to have to authorize the amount that we're going to do. And I went through everything with all 4 of them on the buyer consultation. That was a funny buyer consultation. And I explained to them, you are looking to buy in some of the most competitive school districts in the 7th largest metropolitan area in the country at a price point, and you don't want to do any work. You want finished products, fully ready to go. So here's what's going on with pricing right now. And I showed multiple comps, 30 over, 40 over, 70 over, 25 over, 80 over, 4 days, 3 days, 2 days. And the first house was, they still sent me, they're like, Connor, we settled on this one, but we still would have bought that first house. But what happened? We go into the house, I showed them the comps, I explained the price of everything, and they wanted to offer $10,000 under asking price, full inspections, but they said because it's cash. I said, you realize that like half of the offer in this area right now, we just are in a very cash heavy offer, environment right now because the high equities people got from sales. They're like, well, this should be good enough. And I'm like, look, I'm going to put this offer in for you because I have to. But I'm telling you right now, I give everybody a confidence rating that your offer is going to be accepted. I'm going to give you about a 1%. That's my confidence rating that your offer will be considered and accepted. That got them up to asking price. It sold. I finally went back and looked. Sold 5,000 over asking.
Wow.
I was like, if we had gone in at our 10K, 15K over and limited inspections, that house would have been yours.
Right.
And it was finally on the 4th offer we got the house. And I finally had that conversation with someone. I was like, look, Sam, I love your mom and dad. They're super nice people. They've obviously done well for them. He was a doctor for 45 years, family medicine, good bit of money. I said, but you need to talk to them. They're not here. You see what, and they're like, we know, we see it. We try to explain it to them. I said, well, this is going to come down to you, Sam. Like, I've said everything I can say at this point. I've explained the market. I've shown them the statistics. I've shown them closings of properties that we were looking at 45 to 60 days ago that have sold. So I can show them truly one that we were actually looking at. At this point, it's up to you. And so finally, there was I think it was a 660 on market. They went to 690. They got it. They still weren't the highest offer.
Wow.
But we went as is. We went 690 cash. We'll take care of the U&O. It turned out that township doesn't even have a U&O. And so and they said that you guys weren't the highest. We got over 7, but because you were cash, then we took your offer. So I even explained it to them then. I was like, look, we got this offer, but just so there were offers $10,000, $50,000 higher than where we were. And they were like, we finally understand. And so, okay, great story, blah, blah, blah. But I try and tell buyers that up front. And I go, I'm going to have this conversation with you about this. I'll tell a similar story. And you're still going to want to offer under asking price or asking price when that first home we see. And you know what's going to happen? You're not going to get it, and you're going to be bummed.
Yep.
So I'm going to tell it to you now. I hope that we have a different outcome. But what just experience has told me is that sometimes buyers need to lose a house to get serious with this. So I don't know, long-winded way of saying, how do we, I always kind of joke, I said, we don't negotiate with other real estate agents that much. With other agents, we're just fact-finding, we're just relaying messages back and forth.
Yeah.
The people I negotiate with the most are my own buyers to get them to offer more and my own sellers to list for less, right? Because they always want to shoot the moon on that and the buyers want to always come in low. I said, no, my biggest negotiating power is getting my own clients to the table with the right prices.
Yeah.
So where have you had to do that? Buyer or seller? You got a buyer or seller recently?
Well, that one buyer that I talked about just a few minutes ago, that's we're looking up to 2.5. And last week there was a house came on the market, and it came on the market on Friday. I took him and his wife in there on Saturday, took them back on Sunday. And I talked to the listing agent. The listing agent said we've already got offers. And I told him that, and he went to put an offer in. And I said, well, so I called the listing agent. I said, listen, you're going to be writing an offer. And he said, okay. He said, can I have it by the end of the day Sunday? I said, yeah. So Saturday I went home, wrote the offer. Sunday I took them back to show it again, but I told him, I said, hey, I'm sorry, we saw it Friday and Saturday, on March Friday. So Friday, Saturday night I wrote the offer. Sunday, I reached out to him and he said, I'll call you back in a bit. Never called me back. I called him, I texted him, never heard back. So Monday morning he calls me and he says, I've got the offer that he sent over. He said, I'll go and get it signed and sent over. And I said, the deadline was last night, midnight.
Yeah.
And he said, Oh, they don't have other offers, he said. And,
Because of the price point he's thinking, they
Yeah.
don't have a.
and so I called the listing agent, he said, sorry, Rick, he said, we accepted an offer last night.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's crazy, and I want to hear you too, if you had it too, but just as a comment, we are very much bound by state licensing requirements, board of realtor ethics requirements, where I can't lie about the
Right.
existence of other offers like that. I
Right.
can't do that. But it seems like buyers and sellers look at us like, oh, they're making that up. And
well, and he told me that. He said, I thought he was just lying to you.
yeah,
and I
just to say something.
And I explained to him, I said, no, I said, number one, the ethics does not allow that. But I
Yeah.
said, number two, I said, this is someone I know.
Yeah, but that's
And-
different too. Yeah.
And I said, it's someone that I
Right,
respect.
vouch for.
I said, we have mutual respect for each other. I said, he's not going to lie to me. And I'm going to trust him when he tells me something.
Because he might have a buyer on your listing in 6 months.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I told him, I said, you got to understand that that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I said, there are some agents out there that have done that and that still do that. And I gave him the example. I said, I had a buyer for one house one time, and I said the house was on the market for about 3 months, and the buyer decided to put an offer in on it. I called the listing agent, and she said, well, you better hurry because I got 5 offers on the table right now. And so I said, okay. Well, she called me back a couple of days later, and she said, you never sent your offer. I said, no. I said, we decided to let you take one of those other 5 offers. And she said, well, the funny thing about it is all 5 of those offers fell apart, and so now we don't have any. I said, well, I'll tell you what. I said, we've already moved on, but I said, I might be able to get my buyer back into the deal. But I said, it's probably about $25,000 less than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And-
Absolutely.
And that's what we did. We came in about $25,000 less. They had to accept the offer, but they had nothing else on the table. And, and I kind of told her, I said, maybe you ought to just.
Be honest.
Yeah, be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, just be honest. What about you? A seller you've had to work down from a crazy list price, or a buyer you've had to come up with silly little offers?
From crazy list price, no, I haven't had that experience yet, thank God. But buyers, yes, I have worked with buyers who were unrealistic.
What's your
More so,
approach?
not more recent, though.
Yeah.
More so during the time frame, the pandemic time frame,
Yeah.
where people just they just couldn't go in, even slightly above. They had to really get serious about putting in significant events.
Mhm.
I had
That
one.
was a wild west back then.
Yeah, because I had one client which was really crazy. There was one house we went to go look at. We put down 30,000 over to ask them, and our offer still wasn't accepted. When it went pending, the listing agent, the buyer agent, same.
Mhm.
But when it sold for a lot less than what our offer that we put in for. So, you know what I mean? So it was,
A little concerned if that offer was ever accepted.
I'm just like, wow,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
That was very interesting.
If that happened to me, if that happened, I would probably track down that seller after the closing. Would call the listing agent. I would try and find the contact information for that seller, and I would just say, "Hey, saw you sold your home. Congratulations. I had sent an offer over at one point at this price point. I just want to confirm, did you get that offer?"
Okay.
If it was that big of a difference, now look, if it was 5K, 10K difference, and you were full inspections, no appraisal gap, no extra bells and whistles, okay, I could see maybe taking a lower offer with less contingencies. That makes sense. But if it was enough of a difference,
Yeah.
I've never had to do that. But if I'm thinking through this scenario, I might want to call that seller and just say, like, did you ever receive that offer? Did you ever get that offer? And there was one agent that I just don't trust them. Just too many stories.
No,
I'll send that acknowledgement of offer receipt. I'll say, I need your seller to sign this. It is a legal New Jersey document. You are required to provide this back if I request it.
Yeah.
And they did do it. They had the seller signature on there and everything. I was like, okay, fine. But I just don't trust that you're presenting all offers. I just don't, because they're notorious for double-siding every transaction, and it's.
Well, in Delaware and Pennsylvania too, there's a place on there to reject the offer. And, there are some agents that Most agents don't even fool with that, but there are some agents that require it. I mean,
Interesting. That'll
Yeah.
require you to formally reject the offer in
Yep.
writing on the offer itself.
I guess to make sure that the seller has seen their item.
Yeah,
Okay, so I never had that.
Yeah, because Delaware, Pennsylvania, your contract states, so you're writing a full contract for the offer. But again, in New Jersey, we're just writing a proposal of purchase. So there's a lot less confirmation that it gets there, and that's why they came up with this acknowledged receipt
makes
offer
sense.
document. It's a one pager with half a paragraph and just signature field.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
That makes sense. But yeah, no, I haven't had too many scenarios where I have to convince.
Well, can I ask you on that? Because I was thinking about this when you were out. That's what I was saying before. I have had to really break down the difference between what is listing price and what is market value. And what I hear, and I tell buyers all the time, I said, what I hear from you is that you don't want to offer over listing price. But what I actually think you mean is you don't want to offer over market value. Well, do you know how, and obviously we know this, but I'm just saying it. Do you know how they come up with that listing price? They made it up, right? A seller and a listing agent sat together in a room, looked at comps and said, here, right? And that's how they come up with that price.
Mm-hmm.
Is that market value? No, it's not market value, or else every single home would sell for what it's listed. That would be representative of the market value, which a buyer, seller, no other obstacles or issues. This is what they agreed to the price. So I said, but during COVID, every single house went for basically market value, because that's what a ready, willing, and able buyer and ready, willing, and able seller were willing to close on. So every home sold over asking price, but they all sold at market value. So I want to make sure that when we go forward, I don't care about the listing price when it comes to the offer we're going to put. It comes in, we use it as a reference point, but our comps and how we're going to look at where's the market trending right now, the comparable sales in that area, other factors, external obsolescence, things like that, that are going to matter for our offer. That's what we're going to determine market value. And then you get a decision of whether you want to offer market value, below, or over, and we'll cross-reference that against the listing price that they put up. But do you have a different way of explaining that to buyers? The difference between the list price and trying to know what market value is? I mean, that's like the best way I've been able to come up with how to explain it to them. But I'm kind of looking if there's a different way to say that. There's a different way to, and that's not people understanding, where they're like, oh, okay, yeah, listing price is whatever. We know that it's probably going to be, if it's listed at $395, 3 days on market, perfect house, perfect neighborhood, blah, 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 perfect pictures. Yeah, that's a $415, that's a $420, that's a $425 house. So they're all, and okay, yeah, so I won't offer $430, but I am good with $420 on a $395. Okay, good. Like that's where I want them. That's where I want their headspace to be. I think the other half of that is I tell them, well, all right, so what is your goal budget? Got pre-approved, okay, you got a max, but we rarely go to the max. What is your goal budget? 375. Got it. If your goal budget is 375, I'm going to encourage you to look at homes under 350.
Yeah.
Because the house you find at 349, you really like, that's a 375 house. That's still in our market, still in a lot of our markets. We've had cooling in a lot of the Philadelphia metro areas. We've had a $50,000 drop in median list price since July in Bucks, Chester, Montgomery, Delaware. We've had about a $10,000, $15,000 drop in Philadelphia. We've had about a $5,000 to $10,000 drop in the 3 counties in New Jersey. So I'm okay with prices softening up a little bit. How do I get them to understand that your 350 is where you need to search so that you can offer? Yes. Here's the way I say it. You're going to have trainings go in 2 different directions. One is first day on market, 375, perfect house, perfect neighborhood, perfect pictures. Okay, that train's going this way. That's a $400,000 house. But the other is the train going this way. It's listed at 375, 72 days on market, 2 price drops. Now it's at 375. That's a 360, 365, 355. So it's like you got to see which way is the train going. Is days on market fresh and we know it's about to go up, or are days on market stale and it's about to come down a little bit? So I'm okay with setting the search up to 375, maybe even up to close to 400. But just know, if this is a 380 listing first day on market, yeah, we could see that. But you and I both know that's going to be going over. We both know that's going to be going over. So I think those are my only 2 ways that I've had right now in my life kind of tool belt to explain like the difference of price versus value. Your offer and your pre-approval amounts, like where you should be kind of searching based on the direction. Do you have a different way of explaining?
No. I mean, I'm pretty much in the same place when when I'm talking to my buyers to say if if you're pre-approved for a certain dollar amount. I mean, yeah, it's okay to look up at that higher, However, you want to stay maybe a little bit under, just to make sure that you have some wiggle room for how much you can offer. But more importantly, though, talking about the whether or not the house is when it's newly on the market, we know that we have to get a little bit more aggressive. So you definitely, if it's something that's fresh on the market, you know that you may need to, look more at something that's a little bit under your price point. To be able to offer.
Right.
Yeah.
How have y'all been dealing with the situation where, and I just bring this back to a current client that I have right now, Rachel and Jake. And they got a pretty nice budget, like 400, 425. They've both got good jobs and, good savings. They've been with family for like past 2-3 years. But they're like, I just took Rachel out last night. And we went and saw a little rancher, 3-bed, 1.5 bath rancher with a half bath in the basement. It's got a semi-finished basement, but it's so low that, I was joking, like part of the ceiling came up to here on me, which was supposed to be like the main part of so you take pictures, it looks like a finished basement. When you walk down, you're like, okay, this should be an unfinished basement that they happen to add some laundry, like utility areas. And they're struggling with, they're like, look, we have to be within this area. His work, my work, our parents, like this is our kind of truck, this is our area, Willow Grove, Hatboro, Horsham, type area, kind of north of Philadelphia, that way. And they're like, we just feel a little discouraged. It's like all the stuff we see is like not really great, different things like that. I said, here's what I believe happened during COVID. Here are the 3 things that I think happened. There's 3 main parts of the buyer searching method. There's where I'm going to be, right? There's going to be the type of house that I want, like the amount of space that I'm going to need, and the condition. And I said, people, if you want to live in a certain school district, you're going to live in that school district, or you're going to live in a comparable school district. So I don't think a lot of people were willing to go from an 8 or 9 out of 10 the school ratings to go to a 4. Like I don't think a lot of people are willing to bite that bullet. Okay, size of the home. People are generally moving because they need to upsize because of space needs or downsize because of space needs. I don't think a lot of people are like, well, I got 2 kids. We were looking at a 6-bedroom. I think I might be okay with a 5-bedroom. No, you're if you need 3 bedrooms, you need 3 bedrooms all day. You might be willing to not have a finished basement or an outside, but you need that size of the house. So it's like, so I can't compromise that much on size of the house and the area I want to be in. I said, well, the only thing that's going to get you in the price bracket that you want to be in is condition. And so much of my conversations is like, are you willing, hey, do you want to do work or not do work? Well, we really like something really finished so we can just move in. I get that. I said, but, what if perfect house just needs carpet and paint? How would we do that? Perfect house, but needs carpet, paint, and a new roof. Maybe carpet, paint, roof, and so I'm trying to like push them now into the, look, what this did was you can still have the house you want. You can still have the area you want, but you are going to have to put some sweat equity into this house in the first place. Stop making day 1 of your house the house that you're going to be in. It's really year 1, year 2, year 3. That's when your house is going to hit its stride of what it will be more long term. But otherwise you're overpaying.
I just had a buyer that bought, this is the school district that they wanted to be. They wanted to be in the Apple permanent school district. So, one of the things that we talked about was, I know where her price point needed to be at, but if she wanted a perfect house, it would be way over that price point. So, of course, some of the things that we have to compromise was, I might have to go in there and do some painting herself. Yeah, you might have to go in there and, because you're in Middletown, most of the homes are still fairly new.
Yeah.
However, instead of getting brand new,
Yeah.
you know, where it's well over 400 or 500, you're in the 300,000, but you may need to go in there and do a little bit of painting. You may need to go in there and, you know, change the carpet at some point.
Yeah.
You know, maybe change their appliances if they were from, you know, maybe the early 90s or early 2000s.
Was she okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good.
But you know,
Did she bite you on it?
no.
Okay. All right. Good to know.
No, because this was someone who had some realistic,
All
you
right.
know, thought process
Yes.
because of the fact that they know where they wanted to be at.
Yeah.
The school district.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you're kind of doing a version of, you know, under promise and then over deliver. Like I really try and create a little bit of a pessimistic outlook. You know, I have that glimmer. There's always hope.
Yeah.
Right? There's always hope. Hey, if we stick to our process, you know, be resolute about what you want. When the right house comes up, all these no's are just getting closer to a yes. Every house we see that's close, that's actually a really good thing because you're knocking up against the universe and like, okay, now that this could have become real, was I okay with that or not? And sometimes when it's just theory, I could be okay with it, I might not. But when we're ready to put pen and paper, you're going to have a slapstick kind of reaction like, you know what? No, I'm not okay with that. I'm really glad we found that. But I found that, like, I'm trying to tell people, like, my whole philosophy right now in buying is I want you to be incredibly ruthless about the lowest standard of living that you're going to be comfortable for the next chapter of your life. Be ruthless about it. Because if the world is getting way more expensive around us, we have to figure out how frugal can we be, what we can control. And so what is the smallest, crappiest house that you're going to be okay with for the next chapter of your life? Just know what that bottom limit is. You don't have to go below that limit. I'm not asking you to have unrealistic expectations, but be clear about what your most realistic expectation is. If we find something better than that, great. But what we've seen is that even in this slightly softening market, the good houses, good areas that are in good condition are still going to be going above and beyond asking price and are going to be putting you in a position. And let's be honest, some of these houses, you are going into a temporary negative equity position, right? Like if you're offering that over market value, if I try to turn around and sell that house tomorrow, it is not worth what I just paid for. But you have to be okay with that because I'm going to be in this house for 5 to 7 to 10 years. Mm-hmm. And that small blip in the beginning will self-correct over the next 9 years. Like,
you know what's funny? The fact that people won't do that with a house, but they'll do that with a car. Because once you purchase a car and sign off and you drive off the lot, that car
they make it easy to buy. They make it too easy to buy. Personally, too easy.
Yeah, just one thing. So
because like you're like, oh, where do you work? Oh, I work at this place. Okay, cool. How much money do you make? Oh, I make this amount of money. Okay, what's your credit score? Oh, your credit score's pretty good. All right, okay, move along.
Yeah.
Like there's no like call your job and be like, hey, does Tom really work there? Who's Tom? Oh, look at Tom, this guy. Oh, that name sounds familiar. He might work here.
But they do have when we put stuff through Rent Spree or like when we run background checks and financials, the car companies do have this. And if they have your social security and your numbers, like they are looking up your employment verification. Yeah. They're looking up. They can see income.
They can see
that stuff. Yeah, they can see revolving data.
Plus, it's a whole lot easier for them to take it back.
Yeah, sure.
They can take it back and resell it, whereas a house is a whole lot harder to repossess.
No, but I'm just saying though, the mindset of people.
Yeah,
they'll go out there because I know too many people right now who have bought vehicles that are like $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, and the minute they bought that car, it no longer is worth that amount once you drive off the lot. Because you cannot go back and sell that for that $60,000.
Nice cars have made Americans poor.
Right. Yeah. And then over time, over the 5 years, 10 years that you're paying that car payment, the value of it is going down even further. Right. And it actually goes down to zero.
Yeah.
You know,
zero cash flow, depreciating, staying in an asset. Yeah.
In some areas, at one time, you could buy a house for $40,000, $50,000, and people would never buy that house. Not realizing that same mindset, if you were to use that same mindset and buy the house, now the house would have been worth $100,000, $200,000, maybe even $300,000. That same $50,000 house, $60,000 house. Yeah. That you look at as a negative, but you look at the car differently. You know what I mean? So people just, I don't know what it is about having put in more value on a car.
Yeah.
And I understand it takes you around, but in the long run, it does not bring any, there's no value to it. We're in a house over time, and it doesn't even matter what neighborhood you buy a house in.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you buy a house even in the most crappiest neighborhood, and look at all the cities now and see how they've all been turned around.
Yeah. I think there's a status symbol.
Exactly.
But like when you grow up in your parents' house. So you don't use your home as your own personal status symbol. But what's the first thing we get at 16, 17 years old is a driver's license, and like that car.
Yep.
That is the first, and I remember now looking back, my dad was like, do you remember back in high school, you guys wanted to like deck out your Chevy Cobalt?
Yes.
Like you asked me to put rims on a Chevy Cobalt, and I was like, yeah, that was the dumbest thing I could have thought of. But at the time, I was like, the only way I had to show my work, my personality,
Your personality. There you go.
was through that car.
Yeah.
And I think unfortunately people don't get out of that mindset. And then I was like, Dad, why do you buy those boring stock cars all the time? And like now he has like a BMW and stuff, but like
I buy fun socks.
But he said, he's like, because I recognize that like it's a money in, money out game, and it's a terrible financial investment, and I need to get me from A to B, and I don't wrap my self-worth of my peers into the four wheels that get me around on pavement. Like,
but you're right, it is, and
Very smart.
status symbol was the exact words I was thinking.
yeah,
Because if you think about it, the car you drive, I've never been to Connor's house, but I see what he drives all the time. So I'm forming my opinion of Connor if I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Now I have, looked online and looked at your house, like you have mine. No, he told me he's looked at my house online.
My thing is not my house. My thing is my house is.
Right, yeah.
So like when I meet with my clients, I'll tell them, you can come to my house. Will it be the most amazing thing you've ever seen? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. But what will be the most amazing thing you've ever seen? Will be the difference between what I bought it for
And what it's worth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
and people like I amaze people all the time. Like, well, I bought this house for $156,000 on auction. They go, how the hell did you do that?
Yeah.
I can teach you the same thing.
Well, and one thing, answering your last question, one thing one option that we used to offer when Tyler and I were flipping a lot of houses is we would also take our buyers and say, if you're not willing to do the grunt work, the paint, the changing the appliances, would you be willing to let us buy the house and then flip it to you once we get it done where you want it to be? And we've done that
interesting
a few times.
Yeah, interesting.
And we've made out well with it. They get what they want. They've made out well. So that's worked in the past. So that's an option that we haven't done that in a while, but that's an option we used to make available.
The only other objection that I've gotten with these particular, especially some first-time buyers that are getting discouraged by the market. Like I just had a $600,000 buyer that is going to renew their lease again for a year because they're like, we don't know if we can really see it. We just don't know if we're finding what we like right now. I'm like, well, it's dead of friggin' winter, and like, right, and you're looking in one town which only has 15 available listings at any one time. Like, of course you're not seeing it. They started this 2 months ago.
It's a snapshot of what's out there.
But I tried to tell them, what I said was, I said, there's generally been 5 moves. The first time buyer, your first move up, your big house, your first downsize, and then your final. Like those have kind of been, roughly the 5 big moves, average out. I said, but I think what COVID did is it added a 6th. And that's the step up starter.
Yeah.
And it's become like, okay, stop putting 10 to 15 year pressure on your first house. Even if you have one.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that want to like this thing have to be at a certain
because
level.
You're trying to get a 2.5 bath colonial with a 2-car garage and fireplace because you're like, well, when my kids are 10 and 12 years old, we want to have this. Like, well, great. Are they there that? No, I moved out 11 years ago. I said, but why the hell are we not looking at like a 3-bed, 1.5 townhome that you can have for 5 to 6?
Right.
Then when your kids are actually old enough to walk, then you can swap up your equity. You'll probably have the same payment on that higher price home because you'll have rolled all your equity into it and still instead of putting 5% down on this one, you'll put 45% down on the next one. Your note will be almost identical, but you'll have a much bigger house because of it. That's what Ian Perler out of Philadelphia. He taught a class on his financials, and he's like, I bought 4 homes in 10 years. He said, I'm making the same, almost to the dollar, the same payment I'm making as I was making on that first house. But I'm now in a 5-bed, 3.5 bath, home in the suburbs in a really nice development because he's like, we just kept equity trading. And he's like, I've rolled a bunch of equity into this next house now, and my note is still the same, even though we're in like a $900,000 house. I'm still paying the same as my $300,000 house when we first bought. And I've been, again, but it's so hard to say, like, but you came to want to buy a home and you had this vision of what that home was going to look like. And now I'm kind of telling you, the market is telling you that may not be realistic if you want to hit area, size, and condition. If you want those three things, we just might need a different house to do that with. And so we're kind of attacking number 2, which is size of home, right? It doesn't need to have a fully fenced in backyard with everything.
Yeah, the size is the big thing.
The step up home, right? And that's what I've been trying to that's been my crusade right now, is kind of the step up home is a very valid home. It's okay to only commit. And then also, when you're only committing to something for 3 to 5 years, you don't put as much stock into it because you're like, I'm going to be out of this thing in 3 to 5 years anyway. Right. Like, if something's not perfect, who cares? Yeah. I'm not planning on staying in this thing long term until I go gray. Like, that's not the point. And so it's like, oh, I can be a little bit more free willy about this. I don't have to it's not going to be as expensive. It's not going to be as crazy. I'm not making as much of a life commitment to a quarter or a fifth of my entire life will be with this front door and with this home.
Yeah.
Well, that's why the 50-year mortgages are a possibility.
Yeah.
I like how you go. There was a lot of great things in what you just said.
He always does it.
Yeah, I know. It's good.
So what do you guys think about? I think that you bring it up. What do you think about the 50-year mortgage? I'll tell you right now, I'm a fan of it.
I am too. Because you only live there for 3 to 5 years when you're dead, right?
Yeah.
It should bring your payment down.
Yeah.
My only conflict is on the lending side. You do a 50-year mortgage. Someone goes to step up. What equity do they have in that property for you?
Because you're amortizing over 50 years instead of 30, so much of those first
they're only
years
saving, just so you know, for the average person, for the average sale price of like $400,000 home, they're only saving $100 a month.
So
yeah, it's not that much. Yeah, it's like 100, 200 a month.
So when you look at that, you say, all right, we're saving $100 a month. So that's either most buyers are going to do what we don't want them to do. They're going to overshoot. They're going to go buy that $400,000 house instead of going and buying that $325,000 house, where they'll actually be able to put more money down on it and be able to start building the principal. They'll do exactly what they're doing now, and that's get trapped.
All right, so I have a question then. Maybe I didn't understand it. So I thought that whether it's a 30 or 40 or 50 years, they still would have to be able to be approved for the $400,000 house, regardless of the time frame of the mortgage.
So you're saying they would have to be, if you give them a
So
50-year
based on
mortgage.
income, based on income, they qualify for the $400,000 house. However, they choose to do a 50-year loan because the 50-year loan is lowering their monthly payment. So,
But it's only lowering it by $100 a month?
no, I know that.
Yeah.
All right, so it's lowering it by $100. However, if they chose to do the 50-year because they want the $100, because some people don't think, you know what I mean? So they take their 50-year loan. Now, I understand the fact that with the 50-year loan, that means that they're paying less on their equity.
Correct.
Or their principal.
Do you know how much the average person in the
But their interest is still the same.
No, the interest per payment or the interest over the life of the loan?
So for 50 years, do they do a higher interest rate normally?
It's going to have to be.
Okay.
It's going to have to be because the thing is you're asking people like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
Yeah, but they're paying it for 50 years though. But why?
What investor is going to want to do that? Unless the interest rate is higher, that's the only way they're going to do it.
But we've done the same thing with cars. I mean, when I was young and you bought a car, you financed it for 3 years.
Right now, it's
and then it went to 4 years, and now it's 6 and 8.
Yeah,
But
interest rates are higher.
Yeah, because their payments are higher. Yeah.
So I don't necessarily agree with the interest rate has to be higher.
Right.
It has to be higher.
So here's the counter argument.
That's a long
Yeah,
time they're going to be paying.
Yeah, my counter argument is, let's say over the course of a $400,000 home,
Yeah.
30-year mortgage,
Yeah.
the interest that's going to be earned for that is, let's say, $500,000.
Right.
Right? The total interest earned
Yeah.
over an entire 30 years.
Yeah.
Over 50 years, it's almost $800,000.
Yeah.
At the same exact
Right,
interest rate,
yes.
it's $800,000.
Yeah.
So they're baking in their additional funds without needing to increase the interest rate at all.
What you have to understand is the sale of notes. So I watch stock market religiously. It's like most people,
So you're saying another bank may not want to
you're
take on
going to have yes, you're going to have the transfer of money, transfer of power.
Okay.
What that will do to the average consumer that a lot of people aren't understanding is it's going to stick you in the home and you're going to be stuck. They want that to happen. I hate to say that. But that's where we're going. But the people that are buying the notes, they're going to want more money to be locked in and not so basically the deed to your property. The note gets transferred.
So the present, but in the financial world, there's a present value of money, right? And so it would say like, all right, if I'm going to get $1,000 a year from now, I'll pay $985 to get that. But if I need to sell something at $1,000, well, I would want to get $1,015 later in the day. And I think the point that I'm trying to make is like, because there's such an additional amount of interest paid, they do want to take on that. They would want to take on that note even more so because it's more guaranteed front-ended interest on the note.
It's more front-ended interest, yes. But the problem is going to be eventually at what point do they have stability?
Yeah.
At what point do they have stability in the property?
I think the hard part is like more these,
like
all these
foreclosures stuff. Like
all
foreclosures. So like I just got off the phone with a guy who literally bought his house in 2023, and he's getting foreclosed on tomorrow. Wants me to. That's why I had to run outside. But he wants me to drop everything and figure out how we could save it. And I'm like, well, the problem is you owe 301 to the bank. So unless I give you an offer for 301 plus your closing costs, then to show the bank that we can get your debt cleared, they're going to just foreclose on it.
Yeah.
Because your house
is it going to sale tomorrow or is it starting foreclosure tomorrow?
No, sale. He's on the shares.
And they found it today? That's crazy.
He's on King County. That's Smyrna.
Wow.
Smyrna people are screwed. They bought in the last 2 years because their monthly payments were already high. Their taxes, the tax increase just went up. The school tax just went up, and then on top of that, the assessments for Newcastle County and different things went up. Kent County are going up. So Kent County, we already had all our assessments before Newcastle County. So people are getting priced out of the homes they bought. Adding a 50-year mortgage on top of that is only going to get them.
That's why the seller in downtown Smyrna was happy with the settlement last week.
What was that?
That's why that seller that I had in downtown Smyrna.
Get out.
Went to settlement last week. She sold that out.
She's so happy, right?
Oh, she is.
I didn't. Probably want to kiss you. That's not how happy people are.
Probably want to do that anyway, but.
Well, Smyrna lied to their residents, and they ended up being apparently someone stole money from the township, and they couldn't figure out who it was. I'm sure they didn't, but they had to raise the taxes, and then of course the school had the referendum. They didn't pass the referendum, but we didn't push into it, and then everything was getting pushed by all the schools in Delaware are pushing 10% rule, so they're allowed to increase your property tax for school tax by 10%. So what people don't realize is they can do that per year without a vote. So last year, they did it. This year, they're going to do it again. They're just going to keep doing it until they get the referendums they want put in place because the cost of running the schools is so high.
Yeah.
And what do people in Delaware suffer from? They suffer from bad schools. So it's like, if you want to be a homeowner and you have a family and have kids and have your kids go to school, then you're going to have to pay for that. Or you're going to have to go to private school. And then because you have to go to private school, which, like I did in some cases, but then you're going to have to, as a family, you're going to have to pay to live in that location for that school district, plus pay your private school. And I think a lot of people are just like falling into this, like, what the hell is going on to me? Because homeowners are starting to feel like
we're being squeezed from a lot of different directions.
Yes.
All right. So it sounds like, all right. So talking about Jersey, the price on homes are reasonable. However, the taxes are ungodly.
I wildly disagree with people. Continue.
The taxes are ungodly, at least from people that have moved to Delaware who have sold in Jersey because they cannot afford the
and then they just got taxed.
Yes. However,
it's just
better.
All right.
Yeah, it's better.
So
Then Delaware.
Oh, the Delaware, sure.
Yeah.
Really?
Jersey schools are like some of the best in the country. That's like why people move there. It's got the best healthcare, best roads.
And it's
best
part of your
schools.
tax. That's all I'm trying to
That
explain.
roads, I will definitely disagree with that. The roads, they're improving.
Good.
Depends on what area of Jersey.
Yeah, they're improving. I've driven through Jersey plenty of times, going from PA to New York, but they're
Yeah.
improving. But as for Delaware, I mean, of course, Delaware, the price of houses are a little, because it's a small state,
Yeah.
and they started out from a pretty good price point and have jumped up so significantly, but their taxes still aren't, to me, alarming. However,
Some people's taxes just dumb. Yeah.
okay,
You gotta jump on it. You gotta jump on some of the Reddit. I hate to do that, but you gotta get off of Facebook. I think you guys gotta get on Reddit and see what's really going on in Delaware. People are screaming.
Yeah.
On Reddit.
I've seen
Delaware
so
people.
I've seen
Delaware
so many
residents.
Facebook posts of people with their tax bill. Like,
Yup.
how does this make sense? Like, tell me how this makes sense.
So like a lady last night on Reddit was like, I'm just not even gonna pay my taxes. And everyone was like, oh, what was your tax bill? And she was like, oh, I have to pay $1,600 to the Christian school district, whatever. Somebody else jumps on there and goes, well, I trade with you, mine's $2,400. Because it's
you know what? Now that you said that,
the school, the county tax
So
has
it's
a
like-
lot.
okay, so is that what it is then? Because I had a client that reached out to me to say, Carrie, I got a bill from the city of Wilmington, saying that I owe $1,500, and he was like, well, wasn't the taxes paid at closing? So,
Yes.
so are we saying that there's additional taxes?
They're gonna go into their escrow, and then what they're gonna do is, and I actually commented on this on Reddit because everyone was just saying all kinds of weird, crazy things at this lady, and I was like, listen, you're gonna have to pay your taxes, and yes, they can take your home, but if you have a mortgage, it's in your escrow, so you don't really have a choice. So it's going to
No, but okay, so here's the thing though. Yeah, right.
It's not additional. It's not additional. It's going to go into their escrow, and their mortgage payment will go up based on that.
All right, so someone just purchased a house.
Mhm.
They just did their reevaluation. They sent a letter out to the person saying that you owe $1,500.
Mhm.
They already paid taxes when they bought the house,
Yes.
right? So, and the taxes were already paid.
Yeah.
Now they got this letter.
It's a restructure letter that was supposed to go out.
Okay.
So it's supposed to technically, it's a restructure letter that's supposed to actually reduce their taxes a little bit, but most people are only seeing like very marginal, small numbers.
So if they're saying that they owe this amount, is that letter just informing them
Yes, it's just a,
that they owe, and it should also go to their mortgage company? for
Absolutely.
As opposed to all those tax bills are supposed to
yeah,
be.
but but I think with the states, I think has a law that they have to disclose to you what those changes are, so that you can see it. But then what happens is that same letter then goes to, just like you said, the mortgage company. I mean, the mortgage company will adjust it. They'll have to wait about 3 months for that letter to come.
All right, so here's a question. All right, so because this buyer reached out to me, right? I sent an email to the mortgage company
Yeah.
to say, hey, can you, let me know if this payment was made?
Mhm.
Because we know that normally the taxes are paid by the mortgage company. But the mortgage company sends me an email back saying I need to reach out to the attorney to see if the attorney had paid the taxes.
Yeah, you have to look at the.
So I'm confused.
No, the attorney would have paid the taxes at the table.
Okay.
So-
Pay the rest of that quarter.
So now,
Yeah.
listen.
It's prorated.
Listen, I'm glad I'm having this conversation because I just got this
Yeah.
email
Yeah.
this week, and I just sent it to the mortgage company.
You got an objection handler. You're
Yeah,
holding
yeah.
out on us till the very end.
Yeah, I was thinking.
Oh, just talk here. Knock the door down.
But now if you send it to the mortgage company that did your settlement, they've already sold it. They sold it at the table in most cases.
Yeah, that's already problem.
So they don't even have it anymore. But the mortgage provider that's handling it now, they're gonna take care of it. And like you said, they're
Okay.
gonna make some adjustments in the mortgage payments later to make up the difference that they had to pay out.
All right, so then I need to find out if this buyer had gotten a new mortgage, who's holding their mortgage now, because they're the ones that should be handling it.
Yeah.
Not the actual lender who actually
Yeah.
did
Right.
the.
Yeah. Not the broker who put it together.
When
Not holding
when
it
did they buy the house?
It was a couple of months ago.
A couple of months ago. So yeah, the taxes was due in September.
Yeah.
Delaware, so
Yeah, it was
they
before
buy it.
September.
So if it was in like July or August, then they would have already had that tax. The attorney's office would have already had that tax number. They would have already factored all that in.
Should have.
Yeah, it should all be.
Should have.
Yeah, and it should already be escrowed in place. The only thing that you have to probably follow up on is just making sure that the number that was used from the attorney's office and the number that's on the new letter correspond.
All right, so then I need to just have a couple of conversations. First of all, with the attorney office to see if
You
they
should have the paperwork.
I do.
Yeah.
So I do, but when I looked at the amounts, it didn't add up to what he's saying. So yeah, as it said, it was slightly under. When I looked at the amounts, it was slightly under because he said 1,500, and when I add up the two amounts, the school taxes, the city and whatever other taxes that they took out, it just didn't add up to that amount.
Yeah.
So I just need to get an understanding as to how this is working out.
Yeah,
Because
your
if
biggest
anybody else
thing
come to me
respond right.
with that, if they get these letters,
Yeah. Sure.
yeah.
So we're at 2:30.
Yeah.
So we're a little over. Are you ready for Connor's conspiracy theory of the week?
Yes.
Okay. So this is going to impact affordability in the next probably 5 to 7 years.
Okay.
And it's going to come in the form of food prices.
Should we turn off the?
Here's why. No, they can. World War II got us out of the Great Depression. Wartime economy, all the projects, different things like that. Well, one of the things they were doing during World War II is they built all of these bomb-making factories. Well, all of those bomb-making factories in the 50s stopped making bombs. And so what did they do? They turned them all into fertilizer plants. And so they were all brand new, and they've been making very low-cost fertilizer that has powered basically the entire agricultural sector since then. However, they're now 80 years old. A lot of them are starting to be decommissioned, and the cost to build new factories with incredibly low margin fertilizer, the cost of fertilizer is going to significantly increase going forward. And a lot of the new regulations about how some of it's done. So my concern is that with what we just had with housing during the COVID time, probably by 2030, 2032, 2033, I think that we're going to see a market increase in the cost of food to a point that it's going to become like not battles in the streets over it, but there are going to be, I think at certain times, runs on grocery stores. I think that food stability is going to become a big issue in the country. And especially because we're not great at importing a lot of food from places other than like South America and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that is my current concern, is that what we're feeling right now with the housing affordability pinch, that's assuming that actually not comparatively, not a lot of other things have gone up that tremendously. Like we've seen the cost of different services and different goods and things with the tariffs and the different things. Like we have seen price, like moderate little price blips here and there, but it's going from $1.50 an apple to $1.80 an apple. But what happens if it goes from $1.50 an apple to $5 an apple? Like, what is that going to also start to do to the buyer affordability pool when there are other disposable incomes being literally gobbled up by their food purchases, right? We have housing, fuel, food, right? Like these are big things. And right now, like we've already started to see it where like electric and utilities have really started to go up. And that's also caused a little bit of this pinch too. So what happens if we also have housing at a really slammed high, or utility payments are up really high, and then all of a sudden cost of food? And I think that's where you're going to see people stuck.
Did you go down the Bill Gates rabbit hole?
Did I go to the Bill Gates rabbit hole? I know how much.
Yes.
And
he's trying to take up the rights to walk.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Well, that's every farmer forever has been in a riparian battle. But yeah, so that's my conspiracy theory of the week, is that's why me and my wife have intentionally started setting up gardens on our house.
Yeah.
And we are starting to try and offset. Look, I'm not going to raise cows in a 0.2 acre lot.
No.
But if I can grow, 20 to 30% of my vegetable, potato, herbs.
Become more vegan, a more vegan diet.
No, I'll never be vegan, losers.
No, I mean-
but I know what you mean. But yes, but have a good part of your.
That's all we live now.
Yeah. But I mean, we saw how much steaks have gone up, right? Like you go to the grocery store, like one ribeye that's not even that thick is like an $18 to $19 to $20 just one steak, and I'm like, that's dinner for two, like for one night, like that's all that is. So yeah, we've had to also
go, man, I might as well just go to the restaurant.
Well, I joke with my wife because she went. I normally do grocery shop. She went, and so she comes back and she was like, "Hey, you have no idea. I spent $320 on food." I was like, "Whoa!" Like we're normally like $150 to $200, maybe $225 when you're doing a big reset with a couple things.
Yeah.
And I look in, I was like, "Baby, you got $125 of meat in here." Like, yeah, like it's nuts. She's like, "Well, I really wanted steak." I was like, "You got enough steak for each of us for every night for the next 9 nights."
So she went hungry.
So we have a rule now.
You're not going to the grocery store.
You are allowed to have one gourmet meat when you go to the grocery store, and the rest needs to be subsistence meat.
Yeah.
Chicken wings, chicken thighs, ground beef.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get to get 6 ribeyes. You don't get to get tomahawks.
So
Like,
you just made this rule
well, I do the grocery shopping. So really what it comes down to. You've been yoinked from that temptation of what it is.
No, but what you just said about having your own garden, I just had that conversation that really and truly, that's where they need to start teaching these things. For people to become self-sufficient, to have
a little more homesteading.
Yeah.
Well, you know that back in the day when they were really pushing for people to not grow their own food so that they could be on the grocery stores. They literally made rules and laws against you growing food on your lawn.
Yeah.
So they created these setback rules and they created these zoning regulations, density regulations in the name of like trying to keep aesthetics. But what it was is eliminating. They wanted you to become dependent on the grocery store system.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of the push now, especially with my generation and Gen Z. Like we want to have as limited reliance on big corporate, like, we still go to our Targets, we still get coffee from Starbucks, we still go to Shell or gas, like, we get that. But, like, I think if I can make 20 to 40% of my life less dependent on that, that's my offset. I'm not going to be able to control the prices of the world market.
Yeah.
But I can control how much I need to engage with the world market.
I'll offer you this. You want to drive a little bit. I'll give you an acre of my property. You can come and build a garden.
There we go.
And just let me
just go out and pick what you want.
Then share the garden with you.
Yeah.
But,
well, and they say you need about a quarter acre to grow basically all the food you need for a family of 4 for a year. Yeah. I mean, outside of proteins and different things like that, but you only need about a quarter acre.
They probably consider me a family of 2.
That's funny because I'm from Jamaica, so I have family who have, their farms. And the amount of stuff that they grow in a very small area is mind-boggling to me, because when I went down and I visited a couple of my family who, it's just small little areas, but they have so many things planted in there to feed that, that they can reap. Yeah. And I'm like, wow. The only thing is they have the climate on their side.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're able to sustain themselves and, keep reproducing stuff. However,
the winter doesn't completely shut down the food production where I'm here, like between October and March, you're not growing anything. You're not growing anything. So that's where up here.
It's just crazy that I was just amazed at the small little area that they have, which is my backyard.
Yep. Yep.
And they have so many things planted.
Absolutely. And we did this for this year. We put in a local pollinator garden patch in our front yard. It's about a 10-foot by 10-foot little patch. And we got just to this area, very local pollinators. And what we noticed was that the amount of bugs that we have is incredible. We have butterflies and moths and bees and different species of bees and everybody. And then in the winter, they're all burrowing inside of the dead husks. And so, like, we've left a lot of our leaves inside of there because we're creating like a little ecosystem. And then we're going to grow it next year. And then we're going to put our patch of food right on the other side of it. Well, and so now we're kind of attracting pollinators so that our gardens will kind of benefit from it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's funny. I actually had started a garden in my backyard, but because it was attracting so many things, we got rid of it because I was afraid of a lot of stuff that was coming in my yard.
We did get a lot of interesting characters flying sort of when we were Oh my God.
Lions, because there were some bugs that I never saw before that
Yeah.
came and ate up some of the stuff that we grew.
Yeah, we had some too.
But it was more importantly the fact that I was getting so many groundhogs, so many rabbits, so many just different things in my yard.
Well, that means you have a healthy yard.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what
You don't really
that means you have a great yard.
No, I still do because yesterday I saw seven deers that walked through my yard. I even took a picture because when they saw me whip out the camera, they ran. I was like, ah.
Yeah.
But yeah, but the point though is I just was afraid of, I mean, I got discouraged, that's the word, because of all the things that I was attracting, not realizing that really I shouldn't be, not how much over I can deal with it.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's something that I said that I really need to maybe revisit, to replant
Yeah,
stuff
we did the same thing, right?
because of how expensive things are.
Yeah.
This summer, my neighbor, like, because they have a little potted area that they plant stuff, they planted cucumbers, and one of them grew over into our yard. And we told them that we claimed it. The thing got this big.
Yeah.
Yes. When we ate it, it's like this was a cucumber.
Yeah.
Because it was so good. I said, see, this is why I need to get back to planting stuff. Because naturally grown,
Yeah.
you know what you put in it.
Yeah.
And you know what
Yeah,
you're
we
gonna
gotta
get.
build and fix more of our own stuff.
Yeah.
And we gotta grow more of our own stuff. Like,
Yeah.
that is the combativeness to
I grew up on my
consumerism.
homestead, so.
Yeah. That's my wife's family. They're like
They did 2.5 acres.
her dad was just here and he tells us, he's like, we have 100 acres out in western PA.
Yeah.
He's like, it was all farmed. And it's very hilly. It's not just like a flat open land. Like it's very hilly. So there were patches of farming instead of just like big open tracts of it. But he's like, we didn't go home to eat. We just cruised around and we would just pick stuff off of wherever we were at in the garden that day. And that's like that. We just had tomatoes for lunch.
Yeah.
Right? We just had green beans for lunch. We just had okra for lunch. Like that was just our lunch for that day. And I was like, and he's like,
Where in PA?
they're in a small area called Pittanning, which is about 45 to an hour north of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Pittsburgh. Yeah. So it's Pennsylvania out there. It's Hollerville and Low Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
That's Lake Town.
It is. Well, I'm going to wrap up at least our recording in our session, but I appreciate the conversation. This is this was supposed to be objection handling, but I think this is better when we could just talk through our biggest concerns and really, I mean, it's the conversations we're having.
Yeah.
And I just think we need to all be on the forefront of what that is and good conversations because professional perspective providers for the Triple P. Thank you.